Alright, so what I am going to go over in this video is instructions for how to complete the Chapter 11 Friction Lab. Okay, so what we need first, the first part of the lab is this. You're going to need, each group will need 2 bags of marbles. You will need a cup with a string on this. So you will have a cup with a string on this. You'll need a wooden block, and it doesn't matter which wooden block that you grab, you just need a wooden block here. And then you need 3 sets of paper. You need a set of wax paper, you need a set of sandpaper, and then you also need notebook paper. So what you're going to do is you are going to take the first sheet. The first thing listed on the lab is wax paper. And what you're going to do, you're going to get to the edge. You're going to get to the edge of a desk. And what you'll do here is you will tape down 3 sides of this wax paper. So you tape down 3 sides of the wax paper. And once you have taped 3 sides of the wax paper down, you will place this block in on the wax paper. And now it needs to, the block needs to be fully on that wax paper, and the paper should have a little overhang on the edge. Then what you're going to do here is you're going to take the cup with the string and you're going to attach it to that hook. Now it should lie in such a way where there's a little overhang on there and that block is still on that sheet. So what you're going to do from here is you're going to grab a bag of marbles and you're going to place them in the cup, and as you place them in, you're going to count the number of marbles. So you're going to keep counting until you first see that block of wood shift. And it's going to be a minor motion, but at that point in time, and your partner will probably have to recognize it, but at that point in time, at that first moment that you see the block of wood shift, you need it to stop. You need to count out how many marbles that you have and record that on the particular lab sheet. You're going to do that for the wax paper. You're going to do that for the sandpaper, the notebook paper, and then you're just going to place it straight on the bare desk and see how many marbles it takes to move over a certain surface. Now, if for whatever reason you get to about 75 or 80 marbles, let's say 80 marbles, and you have that in the cup is going to be pretty full. So at the point you reach 80 marbles, you no longer need to add marbles. You need to get a set of 5 100-gram weights, and you're going to gently set those in the cup. And again, you're looking for that first motion. So keep setting the weights in the cup, until you either see motion or you add 500 grams of weights. At the point at which you have 80 marbles and 500 grams of weight, and that wood block does not shift, write down on your lab sheet, we added 80 marbles and 500 grams of weight, and that block would not move. The other thing to note is this. When you're doing this portion of the lab, the cup is a pretty deep cup, pretty big cup. So what you need to do is make sure when you're placing the marbles in here, you are down at that cup level and you're gently just setting it in. You shouldn't be throwing or tossing those marbles into the cup. Okay, so again, you're going to do that for 4 surfaces: the wax paper, sandpaper, just the regular notebook paper, the copy paper here, and the bare desk. When you get done, return all items to the designated location, and then you'll get over to part 2 of the lab. And I will say that you probably will need multiple portions of tape. So as you need it, as it loses its stickiness, just get another couple pieces of tape and keep adding that to those particular sheets. So for this second portion of the lab, what you are going to need here is a loop string, a textbook, and some spring scales. Okay? Now, what you're going to do is you're going to open up the textbook to about halfway through. It doesn't have to be exactly halfway through, and you're going to place that string. You're going to place that string inside the book, so you have a nice little carrying handle for your book. And what you're going to do here is you're going to take this, and that is going to be used to measure our static, sliding, and rolling friction. So what you have here is a spring scale, and we have 2 different kinds because they can measure more or less. And so the green kind has a very skinny spring, very bouncy spring, so that means it can't measure as much force. And then on the spring scales, you have something that's written in grams and something that's written in newtons. We want to measure the force in newtons. So what you're going to do here is you're going to measure the static friction, or attempt to measure the static friction, with the green spring scale. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull this back, and you want it right before the book moves. Now, this spring scale here, if I do it right before the book moves, maxes out, and so the green spring scale can't measure as much, and so if it maxes out, you need to move to that white spring scale. So again, you try this again, and you want it right before the book moves, and you want to measure in newtons, all right? Newtons, remember the newton side, and that's the tie between our friction stuff we learned in chapter 11 and the stuff we're learning in chapter 12. Now, on these spring scales, there are lines every single newton. So that means if you see that the plunger here reads out at 6 newtons, but it's a little bit over, you need to estimate 1 decimal. So your answer is just not 6, it's 6.1 or 6.0. So you need newtons and 1 decimal. So that's how you do the static friction. Then, again, you can always try out with the green scale. You can try sliding friction. So in this case, sliding friction, you are going to want to give that book a little bit of a tap, and you're going to want to slide it, and as it's sliding, you want to read out the force in newtons. Now, if the green spring scale is not strong enough, meaning the plunger is all the way down, that means it's maxing out and you can't measure that correctly, you need to get that white spring scale and do the same thing. Again, loop it in, give it a little bit of a tap, and read out what it says in newtons. Same thing, you need 1 decimal place reported for your spring scale. The last thing that you'll do here is rolling friction. So we have these wooden dowel rods. What you'll do here with the wooden dowel rods, you'll grab about 6 or 7, and you'll set those underneath the book and a little bit ahead of it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're just wanting an area where the book, the textbook itself, can roll. So I would suggest using the green spring scale, and what you're going to do here is you're going to loop it in. You're going to just gently, and I'll say very gently with the wooden dowel rods here, start moving it and read what the force is in newtons on that. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to do 3 trials of the static friction, so the book's staying still, 3 trials of the sliding frictions, and then 3 trials of the rolling friction. You will average each of those friction portions up, and remember, because we only have 3 trials, you're adding them up and dividing them by 3 to obtain that average. Now there's a couple of questions on the end of the lab and throughout the lab. Make sure you answer that and turn that in. So those are your instructions. Make sure you return all equipment to the proper place in the room. Everything is labeled and ready to go. All right, so you can get going with the lab now.